Yes, yes, yes. Salam to Ethiopian greetings. Salam to Tena Stilin. Greetings. May health be given to you on our behalf. So here, this is something that I have been seeking to present, and I want to give thanks to other presenters, other brothers and sisters with their posts, particularly to Farai Halsey, right, as well. I'm going to use his point of reference here. This is when Emperor Negus Haile Selassie, when he had went to Rome, invitation by the I think Italian president, to try to, I guess, patch up and amend, make amends to what occurred with the Italian fascist invasion of Ethiopia, return of the obelisk. Other matters like that are connected with this meeting right here with Pope Paul, right? Pope Paul VI. Right, so he's showing this as a placeholder. Let's bring it back over here. Right. So what we'd like to zoom in on is the translation. Based on our study, we have come to the conclusion that the translation that is popularly accepted is a bad translation. And this makes it particularly difficult because one will say, well, this is Manasseh Haile, one of His Majesty's official translators. And he has done a lot of good work, a lot of good translation. But as you watch the video, I don't know if ones and ones can see the part of the video. Let me see if I can do this right here with this particular video right here. That's on the Instagram. Tell them who I am. Let's see if we can. There's a YouTube as well. Where should we go to share? We're looking at this right here. But we want to zoom in on what did His Majesty say? What did His Majesty really say? The translation does not do it justice. The translation, right? And there was something that was disturbing about the translation when we had heard it. Let's see if we can do this right here. Just pop this out right here on the Instagram right here.
C'est pour nous la précieuse garantie d'une cordialité toujours croissante entre l'autorité civile et la hiérarchie catholique en Éthiopie et cette...
Dai, che cavolo.
Okay, so here we go right here. This is the visit and the address Italian Okay, let's pause it right there. All right, let's take that. Okay, there we go right there. Okay, so hail up to Ethiopians for monarchy as well, just to show a sample. Now, we have had the full, there's a full video from, I think it was Rai Italian television, Rai TV. So there's a whole full video of it, right? In fact, we have this right here in the background. All right, let's just go over here. Let's see if you can hear this in the background right here.
Ampex via dal Vaticano, Ampex via dal Vaticano. በጦርነቱ ለመጎብኘት ስንመጣ ዛሬ መጀመሪያችን ጊዜ አይደለም።
Okay, that's the opening. That's the part you just heard, or at least you've seen right there, was Matthew was speaking, and it gave a sample of Gormawi Negus, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie speaking, and then we have Pope Paul VI, his reply. Right, and he's speaking in a little bit of English, but like Italian. Right, His Majesty speaks in the Lisana Negusa Neges, right, the language of the King of Kings, and the Royal Amharic right there. Now, we have the audible right there. We call it the QHS Amharic address. He visits Pope Vatican on the 9th of November, 1970. All right? So now that we put that into a little bit of context right here, all right? Okay, here we go. And I have to give thanks to Melisech, our sister Melissa. I was kind of telling her about it a little bit. Right? And she was like, well, what did he say? What was said? What's the difference? So I think we really need to get, to this right here, because we're saying that there is a big difference. Then we need to go into, okay, what the difference was. So here, let's go over here. As you can see, Emperor Haile Selassie I, Haile Selassie I, at the Vatican meeting, Pope Paul VI. Right? At the Vatican meeting, Pope Paul VI. This is dated November 9th, 1970. Let's click on this. Is this the one that we're looking for? Okay, this is another one. Is this the same video right here? Let's see if this is the same video right here. Okay, I think you see it. The excerpt. What you hear is like the old time film video. Yeah, you can't really hear His Majesty very clearly.
Secondo la pressione davanti, une cordialité toujours croissante entre l'autorité civile et la hiérarchie catholique en Éthiopie.
So this is what they said in the same video, but just from a different angle. Okay, so let's go over here for a moment. All right, we want to look for Tafari Halsey. We have that on still right here. Tafari Halsey. Right, but then we had to, okay, here we go. Tafari Halsey, hail up. Greetings, our brother. Right, Rastafari Halsey. All right, for your work, for your labor of love, your continued work and service right here. So, right here, this is, we saw the translation. This is some of the pics right here. Right, some of the pics right here. Let's go over here. Right. Right, from that meeting, right, and this is like after the meeting right over there, right, and here, Brother Tafari Halsey, right, he actually puts in this right here. So, I don't know if you can see this. I can zoom in, right, but so you can see this a little bit better. Let me just read the first part. I want to just compare the first part, right? The first part, because we actually read there was another opportunity talking to Your Holiness. Okay, let me read it. Okay, this is the opening. This is what His Majesty says, right? In fact, what we can do, right? What we can do just to show and cause you to hear and to prove, what we can do right here is let's just play the audible. Hopefully you'll be able to hear the audible, but we'll be able to present a much clearer. All right, okay, here we're in the studio, but here. Let's go back over here. All right, here's the opening.
Via dal Vaticano, Ampex, via dal Vaticano.
Via dal Vaticano.
ብፁዕነቱን ለመጎብኘት ስንመጣ ዛሬ መጀመሪያችን ጊዜ አይደለም። በምንመጣበትም ዋና ምክንያት በብፁዕነቱና በፊትም ከአባቶቹ ጋር ባሉት ሁሉ የካቶሊክና የኦርቶዶክስ ስም ልዩም ቢሆን በማናቸውም ቢሆን በእግዚአብሔር መንግስት የሚያዝበት እግዚአብሔር ነው እንጂ የሰዎች መለያየት የሚያልፍ ነገር ነው።
Okay. 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 So right there, we have the opening part, right? Just the opening part, just the first paragraph, right? First paragraph right there, right? The first paragraph. And so here is what has been presented by Manasseh Haile. Who is Manasseh Haile? Right, Manasseh Haile. Manasseh Haile ministered in His Imperial Majesty's government from back in the majestic times, pre 74, 75, godless creeping coup, rebellion against the King of Kings before that time, right? And he's also found listed within the Selected Speeches book that was actually published by the Ministry of Information. And often he does a very, very good job. Now, when you see the fuller video, you see that he's standing in His Majesty, as we just let you hear. He's speaking like extemporaneously, right? Like we say off the dome, extemporaneously. So let me just go to, now this is the translation, and this is what really prompted us to do what we have done, and to even to bring this forward, though this is many years. Also give thanks to our sister Lee Shun and her family, part of the Ethiopian, the old, we say, nobility, class, those who honored and, helped to keep the, the Davidic, Solomonic, the King of Kings government, going, in exile. But they helped as well with the translation. And I wanted to give thanks, not the translation, but I hear what I hear when I hear His Majesty speak, and I pick up on much of it. Some things I'm gonna have to listen again, right? But they were able to provide a translation, right? And so let me do this right here for a moment. So here, if you see this right here is the almost word for word translation of what we hear His Majesty say, right? A word for word translation, just to kind of show and prove this right here. Right, let me go over here. Okay. Okay, here we go. Pause. Okay, so here, this is the opening part, right? Right here. Let me just highlight this right here. Right. Here it says Bitz'o Netron le Megobinyeta Cinemata Zare Mejameriachin Gize Idelem. This is the opening part. His Majesty's first words right here. As you see right there, he says Bitz'o Netron, like to say your beatitude, your holiness, often translated your holiness. Bitz'u Netron le Megobnyet, to meet, to visit. Sinemeta, when we come. Zare, today. Mejameriachin Gize Idelem. Right, just to kind of share it, show it, and prove it again. Right here. Let's just play it one more time so you can hear it. Right, those who speak and read Amharic will note. Again, what you just heard right there, Bitz'u Netwan Lema Gobinyeta Sinmeta Zare Mejameriachin Gize Idelem. Now, that's just the opening words that His Majesty says right there. And then we have over here, right? Then the second part, the second sentence that you see right here, because we want to show, well, this is what the translation, in fact, when you look it up, as we did, they said there's no official translation. I noticed there's no official translation. If I could kind of show you that, I'll show you that as well. But here it says, Bemina met abetim awana mikniyat bitsunetuna befitim kabatochwo gar baluta hulu. Let's see if we can get that out right there. Continuing. Bemin met abetim
የምመጣበትም ዋና ምክንያት በብፁዕነቱና በፊትም ከአባቶቹ ጋር ባሉት ሁሉ
ከአባቶች ጋር ባሉት ሁሉ right? በፊትም ከአባቶች ጋር ባሉት ሁሉ, right? That's the second line of what His Majesty says, right? Right there, right? Okay. You see that right there? This is our notes right here. And once again, oh man, the page kind of went off right here. We're not getting into that right now. Let's go back. That will happen sometime. The page will shift because we went from the page, right? So here from April 7th to Farah Halsey. So here is the translation that, not the translation, the transcript. This is the so-called unofficial, but it's also what we have actually said, right, by Manasseh Haile. You have to kind of see the fuller video. If you haven't, right, seen the fuller video, hopefully you get to see it. There's a not too great, it's not the best copy. We've seen it in an old copy decades ago, actually, this very speech right here. But one thing we noticed is that it was not translated. But then, after His Majesty speaks, you have Manasseh Haile that actually, he gives a kind of a freestyle interpretation. As he mentioned to Brother Halsey, to Farah Halsey, that when you look at the full video, if you look at the full video, right, you'll see that when the Manasseh Haile, when he begins to translate, His Majesty looks up at him a few times, and the camera actually zooms in. It's Rai TV, Italian television. They zoom into his face, right? And you know, there's some micro movements. His Majesty kind of looks, and you can see where it's like when somebody looking at somebody saying, well, why are you saying that? What? Huh? You know, you say something. He said it in, you know, Lasana Negusa Neges, you know, the King of Kings, like the Royal Amharic. And when Manasseh Haile, right, one of His Majesty's minister, also Minister of Education at one time as well, also translated with the selected speeches. And we have seen many of the speeches in Amharic, and we compare the English, and they're good translations. But this, that is a very extemporaneous. What we get here with His Majesty right here is a very kind of an extemporaneous, like we could say from the dome. Now, right there we go right there. You see the one standing up right there? That's Manasseh Haile, right? Manasseh Haile right there, right? So as His Majesty is kind of speaking extemporaneously, like say from the dome, like his prepared speech, he's just speaking. And this is why when we hear it, right, we are able to hear it the way we do, you know? For example.
ስንመጣ የመጀመሪያችን ጊዜ አይደለም። በምንመጣበትም ዋና ምክንያት በብፁዕነቱና በፊትም ከአባቶቹ ጋር ባሉት ሁሉ የካቶሊክና የኦርቶዶክስ ስም ልዩም ቢሆን በማናቸውም ቢሆን በእግዚአብሔር መንግስት የሚያዝበት እግዚአብሔር ነው እንጂ የሰዎች መለያየት የሚያልፍ ነገር ነው።
Okay. Yeah, so Malayayat, me Alif, no. Okay, that's what His Majesty says. So Manasseh Haile, admittedly, he is translating, you know, His Majesty's extemporaneous speaking. One can say, I think he maybe he's writing notes. I'm not too sure how he's doing the translation, whether he's writing down word for word, phrase for phrase. But one thing that we do know is that the translation, right, that we, or the transcript is a bad translation. It's not very good translation. I think it's because of that, maybe we being in a little bit of shock, right? Because we know that the translator has translated elsewhere, and even it kind of explains why when you see the videotape, the Rai Italian television video film, right, from back then, there's the whole film with His Majesty, everything that he says is how we have the audible of His Majesty speaking in Amharic, right? Just straight through at his own pacing, right? And then we have the Pope, Paul the Sixth. He is reading like a prepared statement, as you can see down here, right? Pope Paul the Sixth is reading a prepared statement, right? While Gormawi Negus Neges, His Imperial Majesty, did not have any prepared statement, but, he just begins off, as we say, from the dome, the kingdom, like kingdom come. He just speaks, right? And it's a very, I would even say, as I said to one particular sister, as I was kind of sharing a few things with her, I said it's almost biblical. I really do like to just hear His Majesty speak the Lisan and the Negus Neges, especially the Royal Amharic, or even French, as we sometimes hear him speak French, or even occasionally English, but especially with the Amharic, right? As well as looking at the autobiography in Amharic and comparing the English translation, right? So first thing I want to do is just look at the opening part. I want to show you, well, what Manasseh Haile, what he said at that particular time. We can actually share the audible right here, but we'll first do this after we just go through what our brother Tafari Halsey has presented here. Because once we shift this page, it's going to kind of do what it did before. So here's the whole page. Tafari Halsey first gives us what His Majesty is said to have said. It's not what he actually said in Amharic, but it does conform to what Manasseh Haile, one of His Majesty's officials, Minister of Education, right? Also very important in the selected speeches, right? So he says, Your Holiness. So here, this is not the first time I have visited the Vatican, nor is it the first time I have had opportunity of talking to Your Holiness. Right? Let's go on. This is the part that disturbed us when we heard it, maybe more than a decade. I think it's probably been more than a decade. No. We had actually, when we heard what they said the translation was. Before, it was just His Majesty speaking Amharic, and then the Pope, he gives his statements in Italian, and then there's some ceremony, as you see, with some exchange of gifts, and that's the basic fullness of it. It's a rather, maybe a half hour or so, the fullness of it, right? But the part where it says, I always paid homage to the Vatican. Now, and what we just played for you, the first 2 to 3 sentences of what Gormawi Negus Neges, Gormawi Haile Selassie, John Hoy said, there was no word about Vatican there, right? And we can actually go to the word for word, right, transcription, right, of what His Majesty actually says. So that means you can go through everything he says in this, and as you hear it, we have every word for it, you know what I mean? And this is not it here, but this is what has been popularized. But there's another page, we'll try to get to that and just kind of show that, where there's another page that when we were doing our search, it said, like, I don't want to move this page here from Facebook because then I have to kind of go back to it. So let me just go through this part where this is the part that provoked us to, find the truth for ourselves. Right? I always paid homage to the Vatican. I was like, what? I was like, I mean, that right there is, if His Majesty says that, then he said that, right? But you know what? He did not say that. So we have to say,
when I say more, you will say fire.
Sorry about that, was kind of loud, right? You know what I mean? All right, because His Majesty did not, he did not say that. He did not say that. He did not say that at all. All right? But let's just read what, and this is why when we finally got the right not just translation, we had to do the translation, right? And also Lishan, her father, her mother, Yahweh bless their souls, Xavier, Yabarkachu, assisted us, because we wanted to make sure, okay, if we just do the translation or whatnot, or the, others might say, well, you're not a native speaker, so forth and so on, blase, blase, blase. So we wanted to make sure that, we had, where it says 2 and 3, by 2 and 3, witnesses, every word is established. Yes? So I always paid homage to the Vatican. He doesn't say that. So now when some of our brothers see this, they're like, oh, pay homage to the Vatican. It becomes confusing because it is not true. Right? That's why it becomes confusing, because it's not true. Right?
When I say more,
I just have
you
to
say
bun in again.
fire.
Inside, you can't allow. You can't allow. Inside, you can't allow. You make atalo inside. Right? Burning fire, right? But that's what they say. And always was pleased to have the occasions of encountering and discussing problems with you. One basic reason is that we Ethiopians, as a Christian nation, we have long-standing and satisfactory relations with the Catholic Church and the faith. Although we differ in name, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, but we must always remember we are all servants of the same Master, that is our Creator. So now that is, right, that's just paragraph, as it's listed here, paragraph 1, right, paragraph 1, right, that there is such a far-reaching paraphrase. I mean, Brother Tafari Halsey, let me see if my statement, my comment is still down there, because I decided to leave a little comment. Okay, here we go right here. I say, give thanks, Brethren Tafari Halsey, especially for this post here. This transcript is not accurate, right? Yes, it's what was said by translator, but not QHS, His Majesty's exact words in Royal Amharic. It's the most curious thing. And it's not an official transcript, only what the translator says right after Kedamawi Haile Selassie speaks Amharic. However, notice in the video, right, His Majesty, though there's a little typo right there, it says His Majesty. I kind of hate when that happens, when you get a little typo. But the great thing about this right here, hopefully, is that, okay, we'll go to edit our comments, right? Edit our comment a little bit later, right? We'll go to edit that, right? It's not His Majesty, but it's supposed to be His Majesty. His Majesty looks at the translator, Manasseh Haile, right? Now, Manasseh Haile, right, is the man, right? The Ethiopian, the man standing up there with the suit that looks blue right there, that's writing. That's Manasseh, right, Haile, right? Right, and so right here, let's go over here where we're going to what we said right there. That I always wondered about it. Like, why did His Majesty, it's a curious scene. We're going to find the video and we're going to kind of get that so we can show you what we're talking about. So you can say, yes, Yadin, you're correct, or no, perhaps you see something different, perspective, right? I always wondered about it until myself and an Ethiopian team went through the Amharic audible word by word, right, of what His Majesty really says, right? And so here we leave this part here. Now we know the present translation of what's been presented, right? The loose version, transcript, is a wide paraphrase. And that's being very, very generous there, right? We could say it's a false translation. And we believe this is one of the reasons why, if you see the full video, not just the excerpts here, excerpts there, but we see the full video, especially the one in which His Majesty is speaking actually in the Lisana Negus Neges, right? The language of the King of Kings, the Royal Amharic, Negusawe Amarinya, you will hear for yourself. Not accurate at all. Hopefully soon we'll be able to publish a side-by-side QHS actual words. This no doubt will help us immensely. And then I say the last words here is evidentiary, right? Evidentiary. So we put out a link if others would like to link forward with I, Rastafari Jews, and also the LOJ, the main link site here, LOJ Society, Lion of Judah Society. That's who we are, that's who we be, right? The mission.
Lion of Judah Society.
There you go right there. So that is point 1 right there. So now, once again, the opening part, right, that we played earlier, right? People say, well, what is wrong with the translation? Well, first of all, holiness, we understand Bitsuanetwo. We understand that there. Beatitude, your beatitude. Yes, it's a kind of a way of you could talk about the a greeting. It's an honorific greeting, right? Right. The part about Vatican and the part about homage. These are the things that caught my attention because they're not there at all, right? And even when he says we Ethiopians are the Christian nation, that's not there as well. Let me bring it out right here for you right here. Let's go over here, right? Right? So what you hear or what you heard, let's see, is the first three, you see the first three, right? The first three paragraphs. Bitsunetuon le megobinyeta sin meta zare mejamariachin gize idella. Bemina meta betim awanao mikniyata bebitsunetna befitim ka abatochuo gar baluta hulu. Ye Catholic, ye Orthodox sim lium bihon be manachuim bihon ye be gziavi here mengista yemia yazabet gziavi hirno inji ye soocha melayayet yemiyalif negerno. And that was the last part that we just played, the audible, right? That's roughly right around here. You can hear it for yourself right here. Let's see, right here. It says, Minam Bihon.
ልዩም ቢሆን በማናቸውም ቢሆን በእግዚአብሔር መንግስት የሚያዝበት እግዚአብሔር ነው እንጂ የሰዎች መለያየት የሚያልፍ ነገር ነው።
የሚያልፍ ነገር ነው. So that is this part here. So the audible that we just played, right, directly was these three, you could say, lines right here, the opening greeting, right? Now, so what would be the more proper translation? This will be the more proper translation. Let's take this down and let's go up here. Today is not our first time coming to visit Bitsuanetwo. Bitsuanetwo is a kind of a Christian churchical honorific. It's often translated as your holiness, but it actually refers more to your beatitude. Bitsuanet. You know, like the Beatitudes, yeah? That's the first line right there. So that line right there corresponds to Bitsuanetwon, le megobinyeta sinemet azare, mejamariachin gize idelem. That is actually the opening part, right here, just for you to hear that part again, right here.
ብፁዕነትዎን ለመጎብኘት ስንመጣ ዛሬ መጀመሪያችን ጊዜ አይደለም።
That's right there. Okay, that was right there. You heard that part right there? That is, once again, just to hear His Majesty's, you can say his accent, his dialect, you know? Right here, here we go, right here. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back right here. All right, let's hear it again. I'll say it once more. Bitsuanetwon, lem gobinyeta sinemeta zare mejamariachin gize idelem. Hear it from the king. Right?
ብፁዕነትዎን ለመጎብኘት ስንመጣ ዛሬ መጀመሪያችን ጊዜ አይደለም።
So that is the first line. That's the first line. It's not as, you know, we had heard it. I know I have to get back to that page over here. See, it already switched up. Right? But the great thing, okay, yeah, Ethiopia, Kingdom of God. Right there. Oh, man. You know, I often like to kind of save these things. So this is kind of like what I do sometime when I'm going through. So I like it because support, encouragement, sweetens labor. Yeah, so here, let's get back to the page. So every time we go to the next page, it'll move. You know, Facebook is always kind of active. So here's what the Manasseh Haile, this is not the first time I have visited the Vatican. He don't say nothing about the Vatican, first of all, right? Right? Just the purity of what is actually said, right? Right? Bitsu netwon lem governeta cinemata zare majamariachin gize idelem. Right? And so this is more your beatitude, your holiness, first time to visit, right? First time to visit, right? It says to visit. My coming, lemegobanyet, to visit, cinemata, we coming, right? We coming, actually it's the we sense, right? Zare, today, mejameriachin, first, our first, gize, time, idella. Did you hear anything about Vatican in there? Bitsuanetwan. That's your holiness or your beatitude, right? Like your excellency, so to speak, is part of the churchical honorific, right? Bitsuanetwan leme govigneta cinemeta zare mejamariachin gize idella. Right? In His Majesty's accent. Bitsuanetwan. You hear Bitsuanetwan leme govigneta cinemeta zare mejamariachin gize idella.
ብፁዕነቶን ለመጎብኘት ስንመጣ ዛሬ መጀመሪያችን ጊዜ አይደለም።
There we go, right there. That's the pacing right there. So now, let's go on. So that first line, like I said, no, this is the first time I have had opportunity of talking to your holiness. None. All that's not there. Talk about a visit to the Vatican. Nah, that's not there. Right? So when the translator is translating, right, and one might think that, well, His Majesty doesn't understand English, and one would be wrong about that because one clearly see His Majesty turning and looking at him like, almost like in the sense of, why are you saying that? Like somebody's translating and it's not really precise and you wonder like, why are you saying it like that? Let's go on. He says, I always paid homage to the Vatican. I must admit, brothers and sisters, that part, when we saw that, we was like, wait, is this real? Because it went against His Imperial Majesty. How can we say? It went against, like, if you have like a 411 or it went against the profile of His Majesty. It just went against who He is and what He stands. I mean, just to say, I've always paid homage. The first thing I thought about was paid homage. I've always paid homage. Y'all understand where we're going with this. And it's not, against the Contilla coach, because we already understand where His Majesty's coming from and what he actually said. The problem is that most ones don't really hear what His Majesty actually said. All right? So it goes on to say, I always paid homage to the Vatican, like what, to the building or something, to what, the Vatican? You see what I'm saying? It's just interesting. And always was pleased to have the opportunity of encountering and discussing problems with you. One basic reason is that all this is not what His Majesty is saying. That we Ethiopians as a Christian nation, you will find that nowhere, well, at least not at this part of what he's saying does he mention Ethiopians or we as a Christian nation. We have long-standing and satisfactory relation with the Catholic Church and the faith. All right? Now, I already went over this, but let me actually give you what actually was said. Right? Let me actually give you, this is the actual words that His Majesty used, and this is our working translation. Today is not our first time coming to visit your holiness, or better, your beatitude. Right? They say like your excellency, right? Honorific. The main reason we come is because of your beatitude, your holiness, and all that was done with your fathers before you. Now your patriarchs, Kabatochwo God, right? It says Kabatochwo God, your fathers, right? Befitim, Kabatochwo God, right? That's what he says right there. Now in the next line, Right? He says, whether it is a Catholic or Orthodox name. In any case, the government of God is governed by God. So he said, whether you want to say you're Catholic or, does that come out in the translation? That now I can understand when Manasseh Haile, when he's speaking these words, like he's going through his notes, and it's interesting. We can play the audible, but not to go so long there. We want to compare. This is what His Majesty really said to the Pope. This is what His Majesty really said to the Pope, and it's not as, right, we have been led to believe. I mean, this is the reason why when we look at the full video, we see His Majesty looking at Manasseh Haile, right, and like what? Like when somebody's, but not, I guess, seeking to publicly embarrass them, right? His Majesty, but you could tell that His Majesty is not pleased. Gormawi Negusinekes is not pleased. And I didn't really recognize or realize that fully until now, looking at the evidence, having the evidence. Check, right? He says, whether it is a Catholic or Orthodox name, in any case, the government of God is governed by God, and the separation of people, right? Yes, so yemiyalifno, right? Is a yemiyalifno, right? It's something that passes, right? That's just the first three, we could say, first three main sentences or main ideas that His Majesty expresses during the 9th of November, 1970 visit and dialogue that we have between Gormawi Negusinekes, the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, root of David, between Gormawi Haile Selassie and the then Pope Paul, right, the Sixth, right? Goes on and says, however, since ancient times, Ethiopia has not been divided into Catholics and Orthodox, but in our work, if we were elected for this, we would have done it not only in Catholicism and Orthodoxy, but in any religion, because no religion brings us closer to Exhiavia, to God, than itself. So we did it so that we could achieve freedom. This is actually was. And we now go to, well, what did Manasseh Haile, what was that paraphrase translation? You can see that it becomes not a translation, but almost a interpolation, like kind of sort of a translation, but then kind of like we say, interpolation, where somebody's not interpreting the text, but kind of interpreting into the meaning, right? And we go through the fullness right here. When we come to meet your holiness or bitsunetwo, your beatitude, right? We think that you are those who seek peace. This is exactly what His Majesty said. We think that you are those who seek peace, who are working for peace. We believe that this walk will help us achieve peace. However, we do not say that we understand peace only by saying it with our mouth, but we also strive for it until the time comes when it will be manifested in deeds. This is what His Majesty is saying, right? It's not that, hold on for a moment. It's not like if we compare it with the other one. That's what we're going to really seek to do more, right? Probably write up a little report on this, but definitely to share this with those who can receive it, right? That's what His Majesty really said. Now you compare this with that. We hope that the spirit and intention of all will be this, saying that you will not tire of it, nor will we tired of it, right? Tired of it, right? Manifesting, not just saying peace, peace with one's mouth, but actually doing the work, right? Of peace. Notice what His Majesty says, moreover. In fact, we only have 3 more paragraphs. It's like when we see the other translation or interpolation, it's like a lot of extra stuff. Manasseh Haile, I don't know what he was going through, and I do love his work elsewhere, but I have to ask, I wish I could, if I could have asked him, what happened here? Is that why His Majesty looks at you that way? Like, why are you saying it like that? His Majesty actually says, when we talk about peace, bloodshed is happening in many places due to the lack of peace among human beings. Now, when we talk about this, we are not going to go into detail, but we are saying that we should believe and pray that Xavier, that God will help all those who seek peace, and that your holiness, right, will pray to the true judge, to Xavier, to Yahweh, to God, is what His Majesty actually says. So there's much more of a point, a message. The way the translator seems to have translated is kind of paraphrasing a lot of things and softening. I really don't know what was going on, but let's go on. As your excellency knows, Bitsuinetwo, another way of saying your holiness, your beatitude, Bitsuinetwo, old Goodish term. As your excellency knows, we have accepted the invitation of the president of the Italian government to come and inform you of this conflict that was initially a friendly conflict between us and Italy. We have come and witnessed this determination and the warm welcome shown to us by the Italian people, who have made our spirit and heart bear witness to this. Humanity cannot help but clash with, now here's the interesting part, in His Majesty's extemporaneous kind of off the dome speech, what we hear is like egotism, right? In words, what His Majesty says over here at this part right here, just going down to here, he says, Yesolich, be egoistinet me gachetu. Right, right. His Majesty has a unique kind of pacing. It's like he's thinking about like idea. That's what he says. It's like very biblical, right? So there, egoistinet. So here, ourselves and even those who work with us on the translation, right? Things say what we actually heard right here. That's one reading of it right there. And our creator. So what His Majesty said that Yesolich, the Son of Man, or bring out the sense of humanity, cannot help but clash with egoism. Egoistinet, right? And our creator, Fetariachin, who seeks peace, has also grieved him, and we ourselves have suffered harm. We must listen to the words of Fetariachin, our creator, who is concerned and compassionate. Now, as you can see in parentheses, this is still some of our raw notes right here. We went over it again, right? And then we said, well, this sort of translation can be brought out right here, especially the latter part. Humanity cannot help but clash with egoism, right? And our creator, who said to seek peace, has also grieved him, and we should not be harmed by him, so that we may listen to the words of our creator, right? Then that part right there, zooming in on it more, right? As we hear His Majesty takes time to choose the words that He speaks, and it's spoken like phrase by phrase, right? Like when it says, like, thus saith the Lord, yeah? Here, Degmo Salamin Felagu, Yalo Fetariachin, Isunim Asazno, Inyam Gudat and Dana Daris, Ers Berasachin, Metasasabina, Mezamed, Yasuna Fetariachinin Kal Mesmata Lebin. Right? That part there we start to bring it out as also our creator, right, who said, seek peace, lest we grieve him and be harmed. We must listen to the words of our creator, taking care of ourselves and being consistent. So zooming on those parts of his words, Degmo Salamina Felugu, Yalo Fetariachin, Isunim Asazno, Inyam Gudat and Dana Deris, Ers Berasachin Metasasabina, Mezamed, Yesuna Fetariachin Kala Mesmata Lebin. right? So there's some parts of it we're still going over, but we give y'all the first kind of here, right here, breaking news, so to speak. If last two parts of what His Majesty actually says, because my Sister Mella said she gives thanks if you hear this, is because what you had said, you like, so what did he say? I said, Chan, I didn't even go into that. Right, kind of still working on it in ourselves, but this needs to be shared definitely. If we do not do this, so this is what His Majesty, Gormawi Nagusa Nages, this is what His Majesty said to the Pope. Right, this is what he said to Pope Paul VI. If we do not do this, why are we called Christians? And why are we His people? It is even more worrying to say. We are not only talking about this time, but also when we were in our country before. If this is the case, we are very grateful for the warm welcome you have given us. All right. Now it's that last part right there. All right. All right. That's the last part right there. We looked at it again, right? In what His Majesty said in the Nugusawi Amarinya, Lisana Nugus Neges, Malet, right? And we said, let's bring it out again. If we do not do this, why are we called Christians? And why are we His people? It is a matter of concern. Another way of bringing out that part, it is even more worrying to say, or it's a matter of concern. It is not only about talking about this time that we have experienced it, but also about what we have thought about when we were in our country before. If this is the case, we would like to thank you very much for your warm welcome. And this is how His Majesty concludes right here. So we wanted to show this right here when we were looking for like an official transcript. This is what we found. This is what we came across, where it says here, the AI overview, an official transcript for Emperor Haile Selassie's address to Pope Paul VI on November 9th, 1970, is not readily available on search results. Well, hopefully Rasiadonis, Tafari, Yad in here, LOJ, the Lion of Judah Society. Hopefully we can change this, you know what I'm saying?
Lion of Judah Society.
However, the visit is documented, and a famous excerpt from one of his speeches that reflects the themes of the visit is known. Right? So the context, Nagusa Neges, Haile Selassie, the King of Kings, Haile Selassie I, visited the Vatican in 1970 for a meeting with Pope Paul VI. The speech, while the complete transcript for this specific address is not in search results. That's an interesting. There used to be one out there. That's why I was really thankful to Tafari Halsey for what he had on the Facebook that we just pointed to a little earlier, right? But it's likely a formal address. It's likely a formal address. Well, no, this is one of the how should we say? When we say extemporaneous, right? Kind of word sound. Like His Majesty, just not a pre-prepared speech, but coming from the dome, coming from the heart and the mind, right? Now, here, Wiki source, it reports that, they always say Selassie, but that's kind of disrespectful and inaccurate. Haile Selassie, Haile Selassie, or Haile Selassie I, at least, right? For the full name of who we actually are speaking of, spoke about the shared religious heritage of Ethiopia and the Catholic Church, stating, we in Ethiopia have one of the oldest versions of the Bible, but however old the version may be, and in whatever language it might be written, the Word, remember the Word became flesh, that sense of the Word, remains one and the same. It transcends all boundaries of empires and all conceptions of race. Then the last line they don't quote there, it is eternal, right? That's the last part right there of that word sound. Is this right here, Tafari Halsey's page? Okay, here it goes. So when we start to go through what the version that has been put forward, like just one more part. The Catholic faith and men of Catholic religion have contributed to the enrichment of our culture as well as to the enrichment of our religious services. That is found nowhere. There's nothing, you know what I mean?
When I say more, you will say fire. More fire.
Yeah, this here is a real paraphrase, right? I don't know where. Yeah, you know. So you see right there. This is what has been put forward as the translation, and what we just gave you actually is the translation, right? And we're both going to the Amharic, and we also have the audible, so we can say, see what he's saying right here. Okay, here's it written in Amharic. Here's the translation of that. And this right here is just a big paraphrase. And there's a lot of, you know, some of the youths speak this way today, but, you know, it is true, right? It's fluff. It's just it's a lot of fluff, but it's not what he actually says. It's a lot of fluff right here, right? It's a lot of, and yeah, it's just wild, right? Now the Pope had a written statement, right, which was, you know, spoken in Italian, and we haven't even gone into what the Pope said, you know what I mean? But the thing right here that we would like to do right here is just to clarify that Manasseh Haile, right, even in the full video, the Rai Italian television video, right, where, right, and Manasseh Haile, right, this is Manasseh Haile standing, right, at the right hand of His Majesty right there, right. So we just gave a more accurate translation, right, including addressing some of the linguistics, the Amharic of it as well. We'd like to, you know, bring forth a little bit more right there, but we just wanted to kind of put out like a kind of warning. This speech here, right? This speech here is, the translation is not accurate at all, right? It gives a kind of a false positive to what Gormawi Negus Neges, right? His Imperial Majesty, you know, Haile Selassie I, Negus Neges Ethiopia, right? What he actually, right? What Gormawi, right? John Hoy actually says, right? So let's take note of that, and some more to actually come on that, right? You know, more to be presented as well as we move forward. And also, just one more word, also in the sense like making if not history, at least being the first to present, it says is not publicly available in a single translated document. I think one-to-ones also know what we're saying is actually true, you know, but it's just something that has been hush-hush, and I don't want as Paul even says, Hawari up autos, he says, I would not have let you be ignorant, right, not knowing. So it says a complete official transcript of Emperor Negus Neges Haile Selassie's address to Pope Paul VI at the Vatican on November 9th, 1970, and the Pope's response is not publicly available in a single translated document. I know there's what Tafari Halsey put forward, and I saw that also elsewhere on another site. And so I was also reaching out to the brother. I wanted to, maybe a decade ago, I was just searching and came across that. I was trying to find the same site recently, but couldn't, and the only one I really found that had a full kind of translation was Tafari Halsey. And, you know, we are very, very happy, very grateful, give thanks to the co-laborers. Yes, I. Right? Yeah, so this is some of our screenshot notes, yeah, concerning this whole visit, concerning what was really said, right? And it's very important to really look at what was really said. And then after the visit, there's this, I think, exchange of gifts, right? But that's not the really, you know, the really important aspect in here from Brother Tafari Halsey's site right here, you know, concerning that visit of our Godfather and King of Kings, you know, with the Roman Pontiff, with the Pope, and what was said. That's the main thing, what was said, all right? So I hope this is helpful, and we're seeking to bring forward a properly and accurately translated document, and we have it, and hopefully this has kind of given you a good 411, a kind of an overview, of what are the the matters, the issues that are at stake, and why it's important to get an accurate translation as well. Salam to Tenas Lin, fraternal greetings.
Lion of Judah Society.